Welcome to Bedtime Stories in 10 Minutes. In today's story, we're diving into the magical world of Matilda by Roald Dahl. This enchanting tale is about a remarkable little girl with an extraordinary mind and a heart full of courage. Matilda was born to parents who didn't appreciate her brilliance. From a very young age, she taught herself to read and devoured every book she could find. Despite her parents' neglect, Matilda's love for learning only grew stronger. She found solace in books and discovered her own unique abilities. So settle in as we go through the amazing adventures of Matilda, a young genius who stands up against the odds and teaches us the power of kindness, bravery, and wit. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more bedtime stories that will whisk you away to magical worlds every night. Our story begins with a little girl named Matilda Wormwood. Even before she could walk or talk, Matilda was special. By the age of 1.5, she was already speaking in complete sentences, and by the age of 3, she had taught herself to read. But Matilda wasn't just smart, she was a genius. While other toddlers were playing with building blocks, Matilda was devouring every book she could find. Her family was amazed by her abilities, often finding her lost in a book. They encouraged her love for reading, making sure she had plenty of books to explore. Matilda's magical journey was just beginning, and her family was there to support her every step of the way. But here's the thing. Matilda's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood, were not the kind, supportive parents you'd expect. Mr. Wormwood was a dishonest used car salesman, always boasting about how he cheated his customers. And Mrs. Wormwood? Well, she was more interested in watching soap operas than taking care of her brilliant daughter. They thought Matilda was just a nuisance and constantly called her a filthy little troublemaker. They didn't notice her talents, nor did they care. Mr. Wormwood was obsessed with money, and Mrs. Wormwood was lost in her TV world. Despite their neglect, Matilda found comfort in books and her own incredible mind. One day, Matilda's father came home in a particularly bad mood. He accused Matilda of being stupid for reading books instead of watching TV. That's when Matilda decided it was time to teach him a lesson. She filled his hair tonic bottle with her mother's hair dye, turning Mr. Wormwood's hair a shocking shade of platinum blonde. That was just the start of Matilda's small but clever acts of revenge. Another day, she glued her father's hat to his head, and on another occasion, she secretly added a parrot to their chimney, making her parents think there was a ghost in the living room. Matilda's cleverness didn't stop there. She continued to outsmart her parents in various ways. She once poured superglue on the floor, causing her father to slip and fall. Each act was a small victory for Matilda, showing her parents that she was not to be underestimated. But Matilda's biggest challenge came when she started school and met Miss Trunchbull, the terrifying headmistress. Miss Trunchbull was a former hammer-throwing champion and a bully of epic proportions. She ruled the school with an iron fist, punishing children for the smallest offenses, like eating a piece of candy or asking a question in class. Her favorite punishment? A dreaded contraption she called the chokey, a narrow cupboard lined with broken glass and rusty nails where she would lock disobedient children. Enter Miss Honey, Matilda's kind and gentle teacher. Unlike the Wormwoods and Miss Trunchbull, Miss Honey immediately saw Matilda's brilliance. She was amazed that a 5-year-old could multiply huge numbers in her head and read Dickens without skipping a beat. Miss Honey went to Miss Trunchbull to ask if Matilda could be moved up to a higher class. But of course, Miss Trunchbull would have none of it. She dismissed Matilda as nothing but a cheat. Despite the challenges, Matilda remained undeterred. She discovered she had a special gift, telekinesis. With practice, she learned to control her powers, using them to stand up to Miss Trunchbull and help her friends. With Miss Honey's support, Matilda's school life began to change for the better. Miss Honey was determined to help Matilda. One day, she invited Matilda to her little cottage for tea. There, Matilda learned a heartbreaking truth. Miss Honey was actually Miss Trunchbull's niece. After Miss Honey's parents died, Miss Trunchbull took her in and turned her life into a living nightmare, seizing all of Miss Honey's inheritance and making her live in poverty. Matilda was outraged. She couldn't believe how cruel Miss Trunchbull was. Miss Honey recounted her childhood, filled with fear and hardship under Miss Trunchbull's tyranny. Matilda vowed to help Miss Honey reclaim her life and her rightful inheritance. Together, they formed a bond stronger than ever, united by their shared goal and newfound friendship. But something even stranger happened during that visit. Matilda discovered she had a very unusual power. As she sat in Miss Honey's kitchen, she felt a strange tingle in her head, and before she knew it, she made a glass of water move. With her mind. Yes, Matilda had telekinetic powers. Matilda began practicing her new power every day, secretly honing her skill until she could move objects with just a flick of her eyes. She started with small objects, like pencils and books, and gradually moved on to larger items. Matilda found that the more she practiced, the stronger her powers became. She even managed to move multiple objects at once, a feat that filled her with pride and excitement. And she knew exactly how she was going to use it, to take down Miss Trunchbull once and for all. During a big school event, the entire school was buzzing with excitement. The students were gathered in the auditorium, eagerly anticipating the proceedings. When Miss Trunchbull came to discipline the students, her presence cast a shadow over the room. The students fell silent, their faces filled with fear. Matilda, however, was ready. She had a plan to finally defeat the tyrannical headmistress. Using her telekinesis, she made the chalk write on the blackboard by itself. The students watched in awe as the chalk moved as if guided by an invisible hand. The chalk spelled out a message from the ghost of Miss Honey's father, Magnus. The message was clear and haunting. It accused Miss Trunchbull of her crimes, detailing her wrongdoings and the injustices she had committed. Miss Trunchbull was horrified. The message ordered her to give Miss Honey back her home and money, leaving her no choice but to comply. The students cheered as justice was finally served. Terrified, Miss Trunchbull fled the school, never to be seen again. The children celebrated, and Miss Honey was finally free. She moved into her rightful home, and the school became a much happier place. But what about Matilda? Well, there's a twist. When Matilda got home, she found her parents packing frantically. They were fleeing the country because of her father's illegal dealings. With nowhere else to go, Matilda bravely asked Miss Honey if she could stay with her. Miss Honey was overjoyed to welcome Matilda into her life. And so, the story ends with Matilda finally finding the loving home she deserved. Matilda's story is one of resilience, friendship, and the power of using your talents for good. Through courage and cleverness, she overcame neglectful parents and a vicious headmistress, proving that even the smallest person can make a big difference. Matilda thrived in her new home, excelling in her studies and discovering new passions. She made wonderful friends who cherished her for who she was. Matilda and Miss Honey shared many joyful moments, creating a bond that grew stronger each day. They spent time gardening, reading, and exploring the world around them. Matilda's life was filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. She proved that with determination and kindness, anyone can create their own happy ending. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more magical bedtime stories like this one. Join us next time for another adventure that will spark your imagination and take you to places beyond your wildest dreams. Good night and sweet dreams. Matilda's journey has been filled with wonder and excitement, and there's so much more to come. With each adventure, she learns and grows, discovering new powers and making new friends. We can't wait to see where her magical path will lead her next. So stay tuned and join us as we continue to follow Matilda's incredible adventures. Until then, good night, and may your dreams be as magical as Matilda's.